Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday Night Live. Thank you so much for joining. This is the 5th anniversary edition. It was 5 years ago yesterday that in the UK we were locked down legally or illegally or whatever we want to call it. And I had this idea at 6:15 in the morning to see who would show up if I put a Zoom call out to see how we handled COVID. And 12 of you, some are on now, some of you that are on now, showed up and encouraged me to carry on. 251 programs later, 198 separate speakers. And Keith, my webman, has put them on YouTube and syndicated podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any of those others. Goodness knows how Keith does it, but a big thanks to Keith, and thank you to all of you for generously sharing your wisdom and being able to enable me to put your wisdom out into social media. I'm going to just give you 3 or 4 techniques that I've thought about over my teaching and education career that make a massive difference. The number one is the power of three. The power of three is such a good technique, and most people don't use it. There's 3 reasons to do this: number 1, number 2, and number 3. The clever politicians do it all the time. A great thing to do if you are pitching to a client, if you are thinking about the risks that go on in an issue. What's the best position that happens? What's the usual position? And what's the worst position? If the worst position does take place, what's the consequences for you? Is it going to put all your business at in jeopardy? Giving unconditionally for nothing seems to bring things back. The universe seems to have a way of paying us back when we give things unconditionally for nothing. Robert Cialdini calls it the law of reciprocity, and it certainly works for me. Mind mapping, when I can't think of what I want to talk about, or I want to prepare a presentation or prepare some notes, then I mind map it, and mind mapping is just so powerful. Bit stressed, don't know what to say, don't know what to think about, and then put it on paper. Writing things down on paper, and Graham Jones will tell you what happens to your neurons when you write things down on paper in your own handwriting. And finally, manners. Good manners. There's no substitute for good manners. I was mentioning earlier that I saw several people yesterday being rude to other people, and I just wonder if it's the consequence of social media or whatever, or something like that. I don't know, but certainly people do seem to be being more rude on my observations. And the final one, which comes from Kevin Wall, our speaker 3 weeks ago, who can't be with us, he said, just be curious. Just be curious about people, issues, things that are happening, and ask yourself what's going on. So now I'm going to throw it open for your tips, please. And you're all wondering who I'm going to start with. I think it'd be quite good to start with my pal down in Dorset, Godfrey, who has been on more times than, not quite as many times as Patricia Fripp, who's jumping up and down. So you'll be next, Patricia, be careful. Godfrey, what's your number 1 tip, technique over the
Derek,
last 5 years, or even over your lifetime?
Derek, thank you for coming to me first. And I think, as somebody who met you 57 years ago on the hockey pitch, since when we've become firm friends, everybody will understand that what I want to do first, on behalf of everybody who's ever had anything to do with MNL, is say a huge thank you to Derek, who had this idea 5 years ago. It was a concept, so we congratulate Derek on, first of all, the idea. Having ideas is great, but knowing Derek as I have, he has followed this through with humor, but persistence, resilience. And if you know Derek really well, it's with wholehearted energy and enthusiasm shines through. He's told you he's had over 200 guests, 250 shows over 5 years. And those of us who have presented, and most people on this show will have done, understand just how much preparation and time has gone into these shows. It isn't just what you see now, it's all the time, energy, and effort that's gone into the preparation, the talking to the guests, the rehearsals. And Derek, you've been an absolute superstar with your energy, enthusiasm, and we all applaud you for that. Some great interview questions. Typically, just tell us a little bit about, and then you let the guest run away with it. But let's just show our appreciation to Derek for an absolutely wonderful idea that he's carried through to fruition. Thank you so much, Derek, on behalf of everybody from around the world. And that leads into what I wanted to share with you. What I've particularly learnt over the last 5 years is that this show has reached out to every continent. Quite a few here tonight. We've got Winnow from Australia. We have people from America, people from Europe. We've had people from Africa, maybe on tonight. I can't see at the moment. And I think the only place that's missing that you need to sort of work on, Derek, a little bit is Antarctica. But apart from that, I think you've covered the globe pretty well. And with such a diverse group, just think of the range of cultures, religions, politics, behaviors, gender, age, so much diversity. And yet, by coming together on this show, we listen, we learn from each other, we show respect, we may have different opinions, and yet we become great friends. And isn't that such a wonderful lesson for the whole world? To listen, respect each other, be friends, and be kind. And that's something I think that has been echoed throughout these 5 years. So, Derek, again, from me personally, as a great mate, you owe me a pint, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Godfrey. Well, I couldn't have put you up to doing that, could I? You've taken me by surprise there and embarrassed me a bit. I feel a bit hot and sweaty, but all good. Thank you so much for saying that. I think we've got to go to Australia next, Winnow, if you're there and you can unmute yourself and you're still awake. It's 4 o'clock in the morning in Melbourne, Australia, and Winston Marsh, the former president of the Australian Speaking Association, is there. Winnow, great to see you. What's your top tip for us?
Great to be here, Derek, as I slowly slide into senility. It's great to be here and congratulations. And gee, what a stellar cast you've got on today. Look, without reflecting on the motives or the ideas, I want to remind you of AIDA. Remember AIDA. As a marketer, that's one of the most important things we can remember. It's to get people's attention, stimulate their interest, create desire, and make them take action. And the reason I want to raise it today is about a man who has got the world talking, and I'm not reflecting on his motives or where he's going, and that's President Trump. Look, this man has remembered those rules so well. Has he first of all got people's attention? And the answer is he has done so hugely, so much so that every person around the world is talking about it. But not only are the people talking about it, the statesmen. Look at the common market. Europe is starting to talk together, all these sort of things. Whether it's right or wrong, I'm not going to pass judgment. And boy, that means he has stimulated interest. He's got everybody to, when people, back in Australia, nobody ever talked about what Obama was doing or Biden, but everybody here, it's the topic of conversation. Boy, if you wanted to market anything and you could do something like that and get their attention, how great would it be? And secondly, has stimulated people's interest. They've all got an opinion. They all are thinking about it. And of course, the rest will follow. He's created desire. People want to see things happen. And hopefully, the D means they'll take action. It's a formula, AIDA, that stands us all in good stead if we want to get through to people. Too often, we don't get their attention, we don't stimulate their interest, we don't create desire, and certainly we don't make action happen. We're going to see action happen around the world, good, bad, or indifferent, because Trump has really taught us how to market.
Thanks, Winnow. Thanks, Winnow. We weren't going to talk about politics today, but we got those going at a pretty early stage. That's great stuff. I think we should go from Australia to San Francisco to Patricia Fripp. Patricia, if you can unmute yourself, that would be great. Great to see you.
Well, great to be seen. I am in my kitchen in my Las Vegas home. And although I could give you multiple thoughts going on, one stimulated by Godfrey before my technique that reminds me of Derek and Godfrey's remark about Derek. Early in my career, I had a decision. Do I do this or that? And one of my friends said, Patricia, the energy and enthusiasm you put into everything, it'll make both of them work. So it doesn't matter. Pick one and do it. And Derek is the same way, energy and enthusiasm, and we're all benefiting. My technique, originally I heard from Phil Jones in my mastermind, but a Brit who is making an exceptionally good living in America. Let's put it this way. If we were making Phil Jones money, we'd throw ours away. He's doing that well. He said, if you don't have a picture, you didn't do it. So for example, last Wednesday, I had lunch with a very attractive woman who I met through Marvelous Mark, a speaker, because he had hired her. Oh, she had hired him. We were both to the same age, and he and his wife treated us to lunch for tea at the Waldorf in Las Vegas. And we really had a connection. So we got together at lunch, and she brought along a magazine because she had just been named one of the 10 C-suite awardees of the year. And there was a big event and honored, etc. And when I went to the ladies' room before we left to freshen my lipstick, two women next to her said, are you two celebrities? Because we're all dressed up. She said, no, we're professional speakers and blah, blah, blah. So I said, we have to have a photo of us together holding the magazine. And I wrote a LinkedIn post today, and she did one last Thursday about how it's good to get together and celebrate each other's success. Because I just had a very successful speech at the National Speakers Association Thrive. Joan had this honor. And if you are both promoting the same event, you get a lot more attention. But whatever you do, make sure there's a photo that you can post somewhere and talk about it. Mm. So that's my tip for the day.
Thanks, Patricia. That's brilliant. I think it's about time we came back to Guildford. So all the people in Guildford are beginning to wonder who it is. I think it's you, Sarah. You're smiling at me. Sarah Bass, what's your tip for today? You're muted, Sarah.
Thank you, Derek, and congratulations on 5 years. It's a privilege to know you, and you know, worked alongside you and got to know you just a little bit, not as long as these wonderful people. Didn't know you played hockey. Patricia, so true. And yeah, we've got pictures of you, Patricia, in Guildford, but please come back so we can take some more, because just had some brilliant occasions. You asked me this early, sort of at last week, Derek, for my one tip. And I came back to you and said, go big. And that was it, really. I know that's short and sweet for me, but I think what it means is whatever you're doing is what you're doing. So it kind of runs alongside of not worrying about what everybody else is doing. Have that passion, have that commitment, go for it. Don't be afraid if you don't get things right all the time. Go big, go for whatever you are planning, your purpose, whatever your values are. Get stuck in and go on that journey and commit to it completely. And as people have been saying, you'll be amazed what comes back when you just really do commit to it. And look at this, 5 years of Monday Night Live. People come in, people come at different times, but you've gone big there, Derek. And
Thanks, Sarah.
I'm going to add one little thing here, because Karen did a presentation, and it was about Google and being present on Google. And you were talking about all the places that you've put your podcast, your from Monday Night Live out. You've just gone for it. Your knowledge is built. And I think Karen looked you up on Google to get a certain registration or to get seen. And Google had automatically put Derek up as an influencer without him even knowing, because of the amount of content that he's produced and put online. He is, he was right up the rankings. And I think he blushed a little bit because he was quite proud of himself that day. He was like, really, but quite right too. So keep going big, Derek. Thank you so much.
I still am blushing, Sarah. I'm blushing big time. Perhaps, Karen, you could explain that. That may not be your tip, Karen, but it's quite useful for other people to know. But just by posting content, you get right up the rankings without buying adverts. And you're the expert at buying Google adverts for clients, aren't you?
Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah, I mean, for you, it was because you put so much content out there on multiple channels. If you type your name in, you were popping up with like a Google, I think they're called knowledge panels on the right-hand side of the screen if you're on desktop. So that space can show a Google business profile, which is your address, map, etc. But you got something that, it's quite hard to achieve without even trying, which most SEO agencies would be charging you for. So yeah, congratulations on that. My tip was I was reflecting back on the past 5 years actually, and how much things have changed. And back in 2020, my business was just myself and one other person. And when COVID struck, we lost I think around 60% of the small number of clients that we had overnight. Everyone panicked, cut their advertising spend. But we hung on in there, looked for the opportunities to work with businesses that needed to switch online to survive, and actually ended up growing to a team of 11, 12 within a couple of years from that point. So for us, it was a massive opportunity. And so my tip is just to look for the massive opportunity in any change that's imposed upon you, which I think is particularly apt at the moment with AI looming and the impact that that's going to have on so many roles. So that was my...
Thanks, Karen. I guess if we're talking about AI, we ought to switch from you to Graham Jones, who has been telling some of us about AI and has agreed to come back and share some, in about a month's time, some more AI stuff. Graham, what's going on at the University of Buckingham, and what's the latest on artificial intelligence?
Well, we won't talk about the University of Buckingham because I've got a council meeting at 6:30, so I need to prepare my mind for that. But I think before I talk about AI, I need to pick up on some of the things that have been said about you, because when you started this, you rang me and said you were thinking of this idea like you did with Godfrey and one or two others. But I think we've all missed an important point here. And it's my job as a psychologist really to help lower the adrenaline and cortisol levels that are currently present in Derek because of his blushing and feeling hot. And so I need to let you into a little secret that he told me at the very beginning. And he said that he needed to build an online audience. And he thought the best way of building that online audience was to use his negotiation skills. And clearly he's a master negotiator, we all know that. To use his negotiation skills with us and ask each of us to speak on a regular basis at his meetings. And therefore, because we're speaking at his meetings, inevitably that means we'll all turn up. So we're here because of Derek's masterful negotiation skills. Apart from all the wonderful content that everybody shares, of course. So yeah, thanks very much.
I'm just going to butt in there. That was a little trick we used at the Speaking Association,
Yeah.
wasn't it? You know, we
Yeah.
asked about 50 people to speak, which meant we got 50 fees
Yep.
into the association when it wasn't going very well. That's
Yeah.
another.
Automatically built an audience.
Yeah.
So artificial intelligence, it, yeah, well, it's everywhere, but there's something really important, I think. Artificial intelligence is driving us to use more and more technology and to get deeper engaged with technology. And a research paper that I saw earlier today shows that the more technology we use, the less confident we become with the results that we produce with it. So the more we use it, the less confident we are that we're doing the right thing. The problem is that actually it's producing better results. So it's producing better results for us, but we think the results are worse. So that's something that we've got to get to grips with as human beings at one point. But there's another important thing. Here we are all online, and we've been doing this for 5 years with Derek, and it's been fantastic. But I have to tell you that there is recent research that tells us that the more of this we do, the more of staring into the camera and talking to people online, the worse it is for us in terms of neurophysiological fatigue. And it turns out that sitting staring at a camera makes you much more tired than sitting in a room with other people. So we need to do less of this, particularly in the UK. In the UK, today, the results of a study looking at how much time people spend in the office in the 5 years after COVID with other countries, the UK is bottom of the league tables together with the Philippines. The average days in the office in the UK per week now is 1.2 days. So we're spending almost all the week doing this. Doing this is fantastic when it's, once a week on a Monday night, but for the rest of the week, you need to be with people. There's lots of benefits for being with people. One thing, one piece of research looking at how you can predict the future and how you might be able to predict the future of using AI in your business is that when you put people in a room with other people, they are much more able to predict the future accurately, even if they don't talk to each other. If they just write down their predictions for the future, they are much more accurate in those predictions when they do that in a room with other people compared with when they do it online when they're not in the same room. I know as a lecturer that when you put students in a room together and you just ask them to read a chapter of a book together in silence, they will be able to pass tests better than when they do that separately. They learn more even if they are not talking to each other just by being physically present. And there's new research which is beginning to show there is some kind of sixth sense passing information between our brains when we're in the same room. So if you want to get the best of AI, the best way to do that is to do it face to face with groups of people all helping each other support AI usage in their business. So don't do it online, do it in a room with other people.
Wow. Okay. Brilliant, Graham. Thanks. I think we better do a psychotherapist now, Shelley, don't you? I think it might be your turn to come on. You've got so many degrees in psychotherapy that I'm in awe.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say, Derek, is that I actually don't like you very much.
Thank you.
It's beginning to sound a bit like the Oscars. I thought I'd just change the energy for a moment.
Yeah, good.
I do, of course, forgive you for your choice in football teams, etc. But no, I have a sweet spot for you. So I'll say no more about that because that's intriguing in itself, isn't it? Well, it is for me. One of my, I've got 2 tips, and one of them is stop reading self-improvement books for a month. They're very bad for your health because none of them actually give you a solution. They all come up with similar suggestions. And I'm calling out the BS that's in the market at the moment. So I genuinely think, because there's 2 things attached to that message. One is, I've got bad news and good news, actually. The bad news is you're not perfect. But the good news is you're perfect enough anyway. And we have a great need in the world for the minute for people that are driving change, and people like the people in this room for doing something. So whatever you're thinking about doing, do it now. We can't really wait. So I see terrible parallels with I'm a bit of a history geek. I see terrible parallels in the world with the 1930s, but it's not too late to stop it. But there's enough skill in this Zoom room alone to make a difference. So don't hang around.
Well, I guess we can always see parallels with history, and I think a lot of people have done that and said that. But yeah, and it is a shame you support Manchester United, but that's really sad, Shelley. Don't worry about that. One or two people do on here, but we're trying to convert them very quickly. And I did promise not to talk about football, so I better switch to Tracy Hooper now in Portland, Oregon. Tracy, great to see you.
Hello, everyone. Good begets good. I met Derek Arden because of Patricia Fripp, and I thank you both for that. I have two techniques or strategies or thoughts about the past 5 years. Number one, I believe it's important to sweet talk ourselves. How often do we say, get going, stop procrastinating, you should have called that person, you should have had a better conversation. We spend a lot of time criticizing ourselves. And in the past 3 years, I've made a conscious effort to sweet talk myself. If I have a lot to do, if I have a deadline, instead of saying, come on, let's get this going, I'll say, Tracy, you are doing such a good job. Look at you. Oh my gosh, you're getting there. Keep going, girl. You can do it. So I encourage all of you to sweet talk yourself. Don't save your sweet talk for your sweetheart or for your child or for your dog. Sweet talk yourself, number one. Number two, I believe it's important to dress, what did they say? Dress for the job you want, not for the job you have. Dress for your client, dress for your audience. About a month ago, I got on a call with one of my clients, and she said, wow, you look all dressed up. You look so nice. What are you doing today? And I said, I'm meeting with you. And immediately her shoulders went back, her head popped up. She thought, oh my gosh, Tracy is looking professional for me. And there is something called enclothed cognition, which is when we dress a certain way, we tend to perform better. I believe that. But I also think it's important to do that for the people we're in touch with. People on the other side of the desk if we're in person, other side of the Zoom call if we're on a virtual call. Those are my two tips. Sweet talk yourself and dress to make everyone feel good about themselves, including you and including them. Thank you, Derek.
Great tips, Tracy. And you've just reminded me of a book that I've read a few times, The Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David Schwartz. And he says, dress for success, which we've all heard so many times. But he did some research about students that dressed up for exams, and they did much better than the students that dressed down. And that's a piece of research he did. Graham will probably tell me that that's wrong, but who knows. I'd like now to switch to my pal Mike Williams, who invited me to speak in Dubai and also in Qatar, which is a fantastic experience. Mike, and I think you're still working, chairing a bank. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Derek. Yeah, and echo everybody's comments, really, so particularly Godfrey's. I haven't quite known you for 57 years, but it must be over 50, and you're still to buy me a drink, but never mind. Now, congratulations. It's a fantastic achievement. It's difficult to come up with anything particularly original, I think, when you've got so many eloquent speakers on the panel and professionals. But I was touched by a couple of things that have been said already. Firstly, the point that I think Godfrey made on culture, because I remember when I taught, I think one of the early ones, it was about the importance of understanding the differences of cultures. And it's fascinating to see how you've built a real cross-section of different cultures here. And I hope we've all learned something from each other on that, because it's a very complicated thing. But so I won't remake the same points, but it's important to do that. And the other point that struck me was Graham's point on the importance of meeting people face to face rather than relying on Zoom. And you mentioned my role as chairman of the board. I first took over that role during COVID and lockdown when we had Zoom board meetings, and they were effective, not the easiest to manage, particularly when you've got guests from different time zones in the Middle East, in my case. But we moved fairly quickly to physical meetings for the board, and there's a marked difference in how we've performed since then. Not just in the formal environment of the board, but the informal environment, the fact that we can go and have a dinner beforehand, or we can have conversations outside the board meeting, and we are 100% much more effective as a board, I think, now we do things physically, and I'd encourage everybody to do that as much as possible. As for a tip, mine's a pretty basic one, really, and maybe it's become more important as I've got a bit older, but the importance of keeping notes. When you have meetings, I sort of got out of the habit a little bit of jotting down things that I needed to do and reminders, but I started to do it again, and it's so important, I think, to have some sort of way of remembering what's said, coupled with the preparation, which I know is one of your key points in your techniques. But I think it's important to do so. And it was brought home to me this week, actually, because I had a phone call out of the blue. I was actually sitting on the beach in Mexico, but that's another thing. But from a chap that I'd first dealt with in 2009, who wanted to reopen the conversation that we had back then about something that they were planning to do. And I look back and I'd kept the notes from those first meetings. I'd still got stuff on my computer from those days. And it was a really useful tool to be able to go back and do it. So I'd encourage everybody just to keep the good habits of keeping notes. They don't have to be extensive. They don't have to be sort of A4 type things, but just some way of recalling. And I think in my case, as I get older and I forget things, sorry, it's your Derek, aren't you? I think it's really important just to be able to have something to refer back to.
No, absolutely.
And that's it from me, Derek. So all the best for the next 5 years.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'm looking forward to buying you that beer one day, but not in a rush. Now, what about switching over to Texas? Texas, Tim Durkin. You were on the very original Monday Night Live on the 23rd of March 2020, Tim. Fantastic.
Yep. Well, just let me begin with two thank yous. My first thank you is for Godfrey, because Godfrey said exactly what was on my heart, and probably the heart of every person in here. But he said it much more eloquently than I could have ever done. So, Godfrey, thank you for opening this session that way. Derek, thank you for making my world larger, much larger. We've come a long way since two blokes sitting on beachside bar stools drinking Guinness in Marco Island, Florida. It's been a long, long journey, but it's been a good one. And through the content you provided, the connections that I've made, and the community you've created, my world is a lot bigger. And I have no other way to say thank you other than to say thank you. My tip is, it's always the same one if I'm left to do just one. Please remember Viktor Frankl. And in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he talks about the final freedom, that no matter what happens to us, we can choose our response. It's so important to understand that. In the past, since the chat show has been on, I've broke my back in 2 places. I've broken a rib. I've had radiation cystitis, passed 2 kidney stones, had heart bypass, had a stroke, and went blind for 7.5 months. And through all of that, I recalled Frankl's talk with choose your response. Rather than self-pity and feeling sorry for myself, I said, what is the message in this mess? Because there's always a message in every mess. And I found out through the blindness, people's kindness, the kindness of strangers, I've always been able to find something because I looked for it. And I learned that from Viktor Frankl. So always choose a response. The other thing, the final thing, another Frankl quote is, if one is to provide light. You must endure burning. And last week I taught a bunch of people how to make presentations in their hospitals, etc. They're very, very nervous. And I used that quote, and it turned out to be the theme. They ended up by saying, I'm loving the burn. So yeah, if you're to provide light, we have to endure burning. And there's always a message in every mess. Out from Texas.
Thanks, Tim. Fantastic. And Patricia Fripp always taught me to be very specific. And I remember we met on the 9th of January 2007 at a bar on Miko Island. We were sitting there on our own drinking. I was drinking Rolling Rock, actually, not Guinness. I think you need to be a bit more accurate on things like that.
Yeah, especially that.
And that's when I went off and listened to Nido Cobain for 3 days and never looked back. I wrote my first book, so that was fantastic. I think we should now perhaps switch to David Skinner, who's lives just down the road from me and always asks me most difficult questions. Why am I doing things? David, are you there? And we're looking forward to hearing about your next cycle ride this year.
All right, well, I'll do that when the time comes. Well, yes, I ask you questions because I'm interested in the answers, which is really part of my learning point. What's really notable that when I sat and thought about it was that the breadth and diversity of guests you've had over the last 5 years. It's absolutely enormous, which Jeff Godfrey touched upon. And in each of them, you create some sense of insight and some sense of entertainment, but you really get people talking, which I think is part of the essence of what makes this work. You create a psychologically safe, unthreatening space for them, and you're curious about them. And those, to me, seem to be the keys. So my learning from it is, if we want to make the most of the conversations and interactions that we have, remember to create a safe, unthreatening space. And remember to be curious. Both easier said than done. One person's safety is another person's threat. So don't take it for granted. Think hard and constantly monitor whether it genuinely is unthreatening for the individual, because that will unlock their content. And you can't fake curiosity. At least I don't think you can. So don't try and pretend. Don't ask questions unless you really want to know the answers, which does make me wonder whether AI is going to be able to crack genuine curiosity about the individuals it talks to. But that's something for Graham's next slot, perhaps.
Well, we're quizzing Graham hard, yeah. Well, I've upped the game on who I've asked. I've actually got the former chairman of Barclays Bank on next week. I wasn't sure whether to ask him. I wasn't sure whether he'd agree or not, but he's agreed. So yeah, keep asking. If you don't ask, you don't get. So should we go to Hawaii now? How about that? Let's switch from Guildford to Hawaii, 8,500 miles, to my friend Carl Walsh. Carl.
Well, first of all, a huge congratulations for 5 years, 5 years, Derek. And as someone who has co-hosted a podcast, I know how difficult that is to just keep it going week after week, week after week. Now, I know that you get some of your guests from the banking industry, and some of them from speakers, but most of them from pubs, which I'm not sure what that says about the banking industry, but there we are. But it works all the same. My little tip for today is just sort of a mission statement that I've set out for myself, which is to lead with honesty and integrity in all things, stay grounded in self-worth, with a keen and well-oiled sense of humor, while always striving to offer genuine value to those you hope to receive value from. And I've had several of those points underlined while being on this show with you over these 5 years. And yesterday was the 5th anniversary of the first the what was it, the first quarantine in the US. So it's a big day for us here. And I just, again, I wish you the best. And I've met so many interesting people on this podcast, and I always look forward to it every Monday. Oh, one more thing you've taught me, Derek, and it's through Arsenal, which is there's always another season. Back to you.
Thanks a lot, Carl. I think we should now switch to Slovenia, to my friend Gregor. For those of you who don't know the history of Slovenia, it was part of Yugoslavia, and President Tito, after the Second World War, held it all together. I've been reading some of the history, Gregor, and Gregor, you're muted at the moment, but it's great to see you if you can unmute yourself.
So thank you, Derek, for the invitation. So I met you in Ljubljana when you were taking the lessons of the negotiations maybe 10 years ago. And then I was reading your mails, which were arriving once per week. And then when this COVID started, you started with this very nice show. And yeah, congratulations for all those 5 years. Yeah, Slovenia, we are a small country, so we are in connection with Tim. In the last months, we exchanged few mails on the famous basketball players, and we are small, but we are very, very, let's say, very resilient nation, I would say. So I would say what I learned in these years when I participated here. So I really met some really nice persons whom I learned a lot. And I would say that the first lesson which I'm taking out is the building relationship. So building relationship is really, really important. What you were always saying and also teaching us how important it is to building a relation and trust between each other. Yeah. So when Corona started, all these things was ruined, I would say, and many lessons were taken on the internet, on the Zoom applications and so on. But being together as a people in one room, it's always very helpful. And the second thing maybe is what we also heard many, many times, never give up. Yeah. So many things happened now in Corona. Many companies went up and down, but we should never give up. Yeah. So that's also the topic which I learned from all of you here, and thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to be among you. Yeah.
Thanks, Gregor. And for those of you who don't know, Slovenia is a very beautiful country, just below, with Italy on the left-hand side and Austria to the north. And it was all part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, wasn't it, before 1918?
Exactly. And welcome to Slovenia.
Yeah, beautiful place. I hope to come back. Fantastic. Okay, good. So where have we got to now? Let's have a look. How about Nancy Lotes Taylor? You've always been here for 5 years, Nancy, and you've done an awful lot of training all over the world. What's your tip for us? We can't hear you, Nancy, so no, you can't speak. Okay, so I think we should go to an accountant down in Southampton, bottom of the league, John Lisby. What tip have you got for us apart from you're muted, John?
Oh, hi, Derek. I'm sorry I missed the start and I had to take a call, but I would like to say thank you very much indeed for allowing me access to this wonderful group of people and the learning that I get every week, and the range of topics has been superb. It's very difficult to suggest how an accountant can add anything too much, but I've enjoyed every session and I learn every week. So thank you very much.
And do you think Southampton will survive relegation this year, John?
We're only 17 points adrift, Derek, and thank you for reminding me for that. Yes, I think the way we're playing, we'll probably bounce straight back. And the advantage of the championship, as Godfrey will remember, is that we get so many more games and they're all televised, and we get back to winning. There was a time when we won 25 games, or we didn't lose for 21 games last season. and we haven't won for 25 games now. I think that's about right, Godfrey.
That was wicked of me to raise it, John. Never mind. You'll be reminding me you're top of the league next year, so I'm sure you will be. I think we should go to Africa now, Roger. Roger Knowles is in Cape Town, former president of the South African Speaking Association. Roger, thanks for joining us from Cape Town regularly. Good to see you.
Thanks, Derek. It's great to be here. Thanks to you for this wonderful organization and for having invited me to join it in the first place. And thanks to all of you other members for continuing to deliver stimulating, interesting ideas. It's been wonderful, and it will go on to. And I think that would be where I could possibly come up with a word of wisdom, although I'm a bit intimidated by the wonderful stuff we've already had. I've been scribbling notes as fast as I could. Right, my bit would be, I'm a bit of an ADD person. I always need to be stimulated and do something interesting. How I stayed in the legal profession for 45 years was by doing something interesting. It was terrifying at times, but very interesting at others. And at the same time, I was trying to establish a speaking reputation, which I managed to do to some extent. But I had to focus largely on the legal profession. And throughout my life, what I've tried to do is keep things exciting. It can get you into all sorts of trouble, of course, but at the same time, I get aware every now and then of the fact that I'm getting older and starting to look backwards. When I catch myself doing that, I'm thankful for the memories that I had to look at, but I quickly shut them down and decided what I'm going to do next. And what I'm going to do next actually is, well, I've got to start riding my bicycle again, and I've got to get my speaking career going again. Can you believe it, at age 75? But that's what I want to do. I live in a little village 200 kilometers away from Cape Town at the head of the Robertson Wine Valley. And at the moment, it looks wonderful. The mountains are still dry, but the valley is all full of greenery. It's the season of, it's just before the season of really harvesting the grapes. They're beginning to do that, and there are floods on the road in places where a truck loaded with grapes has gone a little too fast around the corner. And it's a fascinating place to live. It really is lovely, and the weather's beginning to change. It's almost survivable now. It was up to last week, I think was the last time we had a day of 41 degrees. This week, the heaviest we're going to have is 31, but it's going to go down at the low end to 11, 12, and at the upper end to about 27 for the rest of this week. But that's back to my point. Do something interesting with your life, because it's so tempting to sit back, and yes, I love reading books too, but it's so tempting to construct a cocoon around you. Be lively. Do something a bit daring. It's really worth it. Thanks again.
Thanks, Roger. I remember a wonderful holiday we had traveling the wine route from Cape Town to Port Elizabeth. That's fabulous part of the world.
Yeah.
Talking about fabulous parts of the world, Paul Coleman was in the Caicos Islands and the West Indies for about 20 years of his life, and now he's in Sunderland. So I think that's quite a difference, really, isn't it, Paul? How's Sunderland?
I think I can give you that's the best contrast you could ever imagine, really. The blue shores of Turks and Caicos, and then the rather grey sea at Sunderland. But I've just got to mention, because there's a common person who brought us together, which was Patricia Fripp, because I was in Turks and Caicos, and I saw somehow that you were presenting on a webinar, and I said, I remember that name, and so I logged in. Patricia was hosting it, and you were the speaker, and it was Patricia who brought us together, so she could count as a very good matchmaker. But since then, Derek, I've learned so much. I have to say, I learned so much from everybody who come in on the call, and secondly, I actually asked Derek to be my mentor. He put a note on his website, and he said, why not have a mentor? And then I duly signed up. But my one point that I made, because after having considerable amount of time under the umbrella of Barclays Bank, I came out and became a consultant on my own. And one of the things, the point that Derek made, which I never forget, is the concept of imposter syndrome. And it's just telling yourself, which has been the theme this evening from many people, really, to say, well, look, you all have skills and a lot to add. So don't talk yourself down, talk yourself up. And thank you for all that, Derek.
Thanks.
Very much.
And it's funny, we met through Patricia Fripp, but we both worked for Barclays Bank for 30 years and never met. But there's some interesting connections there. Martin, you're there. Martin Cairns, who's helped me in all sorts of issues, got me out of some speaking difficulties from time to time, and is always there with a usual Irish joke with his Irish humour. Martin, how's Leicester?
I won't go into all the details of our relationship, Derek. They've been in my next book, but yeah, it's been a fantastic journey. I was a bit of a Luddite, actually. I was, like a lot of the people present, my background was actually talking to people in a training room or a lecture theatre, and believed quite sincerely that that was really the only way to communicate. So you had a group in the classroom. There was a group emotion involved sometimes, and the body language is very important. There's little body language available on the screen because you only see people from the neck up. You can't see fidgeting feet and people tapping desks and stuff. But given the arrival of COVID, I mean, this what you've done has been a miracle, really, because it's allowed people across the world to communicate in difficult circumstances and very successfully. So, I thought I was a Luddite at one time, but I'm a great believer in using the facilities that become available. And congratulations, Derek, on a great 5 years.
Well, I've been encouraged by all you guys, so that and I'll still be encouraged by you as well. Now, who hasn't who wants to say something that I haven't invited? Let's have a look round. Tony Artis, maybe Nigel Kirby, Mary. Any tip? Put your hand up, and I'll invite you. Nigel Kirby, you were working for Essex University when we first met, and now you're working for the Co-op.
Yes. Firstly, can I echo what's been said, Derek? Thank you for bringing us all together. And one thing we've learnt, some things aren't negotiable, i.e. supporting Arsenal. That is a non-negotiable option. But that aside, and segueing into AI, what a great machine learning model we could develop as a data scientist for the collective knowledge to hand on to the next generation. Just think of all the nurturing, all of the knowledge that could be imparted. And my tip is being comfortable by being uncomfortable. Given that we live in a very volatile, often referred to as VUCA, volatile, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, nobody is comfortable. And it's about keeping your head, understanding that sometimes change is omnipresent. You can't do anything about it, but it's about how you adapt and you overcome and you inspire and you move forward. So that is my collective tip. And to again thank everybody for being such a vibrant community, and it's been a pleasure to join Monday Night Live.
Thanks, Nigel. Good to see you and being on. How about Harry Simmons or Andrew Plumridge? Yes, Harry, you're muted. Harry, you need to unmute yourself. No, you're still muted, Harry. Okay, let's. When you've unmuted yourself, I'll come back to you. Andrew Plumridge, you're living round the corner. You're an architect. You usually got something to add to the pot. But you're muted as well. Oh, you're unmuted, Andrew.
Yeah, my camera isn't working, so you're blessed this evening. I don't know, in terms of advice, that's wisdom. One thing I've learned is never open your mouth unless you've got something useful to say. And it's surprising how many people do just about frankly rubbish, and it contributes nothing to anybody. I guess the advice I give all the students and so on that come to me is be confident in what you do. You actually know a lot more about what you do than you think you do. And there comes a moment in all of our professional lives when we suddenly find ourselves talking to a client or talking to a fellow professional in another discipline, and you think to yourself, by God, you do know what you're doing. And it's there, so don't be afraid of it. You've done all the training, and just go out and practice it, and at the same time just be careful in what you say.
Thanks, Andrew. It's funny, isn't it? Andrew lives about half a mile away from me, and the sound between us is terrible. And yet, between 8,000 miles with Carl Walsh, 5,000 miles with Roger Knowles, we've got great sound. Funny, isn't it? Funny how things work out. Okay, so I think we've nearly been round. Anybody? Who have I missed? Has anybody I've missed? Mary.
Yeah, I'm with you now, Derek. Harry.
Oh, Harry. Harry,
yeah.
yes.
I managed to unmute it. And like everybody else, will say how wonderful the effort and the work you've done. And we can't thank you enough. And a very brief something to remember, stay very close to your friends, but even nearer to your enemies.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely right. Spot on, isn't it? That one. That goes back thousands and thousands of years, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Mary Casson, you had your hand up, Mary.
Yes, apart from adding my thanks to everybody else's as well. It was just the sort of being reminded of whatever you're doing, try and do it 100%, whether it's listening or applying yourself to something. Give it everything, do it 100%. Sure. And just a sort of reminder occasionally that whatever happened yesterday, today is the first day of the rest of your life.
That's one of my favorite quotes. I think that's an all-time favorite quote, isn't it? The past is history and the future's a mystery. Stay in the present. Fantastic. No, that's brilliant. So Tony Artis, have you got anything to add, or and you don't have to?
I can just tell you about a little anecdote that in actual fact occurred today. We live quite near Hertford and take our dog for a walk on Hartham Common. And we often see a chap called David with his dog. And I engaged him, it's usually hello, how are you? And then we pass away. But I engaged him in more of a conversation today. And what I would say is that engage with that person, show interest in that person, ask questions and listen. Because what I learned today was his mother is over 90 and is in hospital. But he told me that she was Jewish and came to England as a refugee in the 1930s. And it also turns out that her name, before she married, was Merz, which is the current leader of Germany. And they are distantly related. And I thought, yeah, just showing interest. And it's interesting what you learn every day of every week. There's always something new. And that's it, really. Just a small little anecdote.
Thanks, Tony. Well, I'm going to close the meeting now and switch the recording off because there's so many tips, techniques, and ideas there, and then stay on for a chat with anybody that wants to. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for sharing 5 years of wisdom with me and enabling me to put it out there into the cloud, I guess it is, into sharing your wisdom. And the amount of wisdom that's here is absolutely staggering. So thanks everybody, and look forward to seeing you next week and over the next 5 years.